Hello, and welcome to this week's Movie Math, where over the weekend it was the Battle of the Overexposed. Who won? Well, in some ways, nobody. But Taylor Swift is number one because she didn't try anything tricky like trying something different. Yes, while some, in fact quite a few, might argue that her new album is nothing new for the megastar, at least she gave her hardcore fans what they wanted. And when you boil down her fandom to just the hardcore Swifties, it turns out you get a third of the box office for her Eras Tour movie event that happened 2 years ago. Sure, Tay-Tay didn't set any records at the box office this time, but her audience scores are fantastic. And so her album scores, which did set records, which is what this is all really about. Although Tay-Tay's had her sights set on Hollywood for a while now. We're going to discuss everything in detail, but I don't think it's going so great for anybody this weekend, but at least Taylor Swift's number one. The same can't be said for Dwayne Johnson's The Smashing Machine, that B- cinema score. Talk about a knockout. Woo! What does Mike Tyson say? Everyone's got a plan till they get punched in the face. And that cinema score is a punch in the face. You couple that with the lowest opening of Dwayne Johnson's career, lower than even his earliest days as an actor, and the critic score, which is slipping. I gotta tell you, I think it's bye-bye The Rock's Oscar nomination. I didn't think he was gonna win, but now I don't even think he's gonna get nominated. Whew, that's a really bad opening weekend. And I think he's gonna slightly blame Taylor Swift, and it is partially her fault, but not totally, Dwayne, not totally. Here's another interesting tidbit. It was boys versus girls at the box office this weekend, with both movies leaning heavily in either direction, although one had an audience and one didn't. Now, this again proves that Taylor Swift at least leaned into her strengths, but that also neither film did a good job at crossover appeal or reaching out to normies. So we're going to do a deep dive, don't worry, into each film. But right off the bat, because I know you've got a thought on this, probably a couple of them, what are your initial thoughts on how Taylor Swift and Dwayne Johnson performed at the box office this weekend? So as I said, at least she's number one. When it comes to anything where there's a chart, you want to be number one. And she can claim that top spot. And not only that, but while it's significantly less than her Eras Tour box office opening, she's more than double the runner-up. So Taylor Swift did really swoop in and save the day for exhibitors, movie theater companies. Because, back in 2023, 2 years ago with the Eras Tour, she was the savior of cinema. But this time, I think she's kind of maybe upset a couple of people. I think she's ruffled some feathers in a couple of ways. So in the movie space, swooped in is definitely the right word or wording, as she only announced this theatrical event 2 weeks in advance. Way too late for the Hollywood movies already set for this weekend to be able to pivot. Oh, she really knocked them around. That means The Smashing Machine couldn't have any premium screens because One Battle After Another had IMAX locked down. But One Battle After Another, while it was able to hold on to its IMAX screens, the super long movie, almost, over 3 hours when you put in trailers in there, and AMC loves to stick in some trailers, although the Taylor Swift event was at multiple theater chains this weekend, but AMC's always the one grabbing those headlines. It's that girl, just like Tay-Tay. But anyway, One Battle After Another couldn't program around the 2 Dolby screenings that Taylor Swift had managed to wrangle for herself. So it lost half of its premium screens. Anecdote time! I have some friends who wanted to see One Battle After Another this weekend, only its second weekend. But with all the good IMAX screenings in New York City sold out, because, that everybody's super hyped about the movie, and no Dolby screens, they decided to skip it. They were frustrated about that. They wanted to see it in theaters. But, that's the downside of advertising your movie as a must-see on premium screens. If there ain't any premium screens to see it on, people are just going to decide to wait for digital or even perhaps streaming. Have you seen One Battle After Another on a regular screen, or were you like, I got to see it on a premium screen, I'm just not going to see it? All right, Avatar 2's re-release also ended up getting squeezed pretty hard. Not a good look for the upcoming third movie, whose trailers are already underperforming. They're like, special footage, and people are like, it's only a couple months away. I'll just see the footage when I see the movie, thank you. It's hard to tell with Avatar because Avatar, even the second one, looked like it maybe wasn't going to do that well, but then it ended up doing incredible business anyway. So do you think you're going to see Avatar at the end of the year? How are you feeling about Avatar? Because again, it's only going to be like a 2 or 3 year break between the last movie. So yeah, last time Taylor Swift was the hero of Hollywood and cinema because she made good use of screens that were not being used. But this time, she really messed up the box office prospects for a couple of movies. So if you were these movies, would you be upset with Taylor Swift? Or do they only have themselves to blame? It's maybe a mix of the two. And if it's a mix, which I think it is, what percentage would you give to Tay-Tay and what percentage would you give to the movie itself? Yeah, I'm telling it like it is, as I do every Sunday. And you don't have to agree with me, but we can discuss our strong opinions. There's a comment section, and I keep a pretty close eye on the comment section for the first 24 to 48 hours of a video. So be sure to subscribe so you watch my videos in the first 24 to 48 hours. And we can interact in the comments down below. Also, by the way, hit that little bell. What's that bell do? It's notifications. And it'll not only let you know when a video goes up, but give you a 30-minute heads up for when I'm about to go live. All right, so let's keep dropping truth bombs. And you can do truth bomb rebuttals if you'd like down below. Although I don't see a lot of people defending Taylor Swift, which is interesting. All right, so as I said, this album release party didn't have nearly the broad interest of her last theatrical event, and that was the chance to experience at a much lower price point her historic concert. I mean, it's not like her demos last time were really good. They were still pretty concentrated in one specific direction, but they were broader than they were this time. And I think this is partially Taylor Swift's fault. I don't think she did a good job putting this album release party together. I mean, it's not a ton of fresh new content, especially to appeal to non-fans. What was it? One new music video, some lyric videos, and then like behind the scenes footage and interviews? Nah. If it had been several new music videos instead of just one, I think that would have helped. I had planned to go, but when I saw what it was going to be, and when I heard what the album sounded like, I was like, forget it. And I tried to get my money back, and I'd bought tickets for competing showtimes because I wasn't sure when I wanted to go. And I guess this is on me, but I had not seen that the tickets were non-refundable. So I hope that Taylor Swift enjoyed my $70. That was frustrating. All right. So anyway, did that happen to you? And then if it did, were you like, I guess I might as well go since I can't get my money back? But I think that perhaps if it had been several music videos, I think that would have been better. It reminds me, well, when I was growing up, my parents had this old tape of Michael Jackson's greatest music videos. And I would watch that growing up. It was maybe an hour or so. It was phenomenal. And that's kind of what I was hoping this was going to be when I first heard it was announced. I was like, oh, a bunch of music videos for the album? It wasn't. Did you go? Was it fun? How did it work? Did you have to be a super Taylor Swift fan to enjoy it? I mean, they did. Look at the audience scores. But as you can see, a lot of people chose not to go compared to last time. But I would also argue that if you have an album with no singles available, you can only buy the entire album, then again, that's a good argument to maybe release a movie that has music videos for all those songs. I'm just saying. And then also, as I also said, the album isn't, what do you think of the new album? What do you think? I've seen a lot of, I think, very fair criticism. The songs don't match the branding, the motif, she changed her image, but not her sound, right? I think those are fair criticisms. I was outside yesterday driving around, and they were playing some Taylor Swift, and they played Life of a Showgirl and The Fate of Ophelia. I gotta say, they were okay bops in the background, but they sounded like a lot of her other songs. They weren't, none of them are standouts. Not like Chapel Roan, who I really like. We'll see. I know again, this is, you think movie fans are touchy. Fans of singers, female singers is a brutal space. So I'm just trying to be honest, man. All right. So I think that because the album, for most people, at the very least, isn't great, that leads to, I think, perhaps Taylor Swift's biggest problem over the weekend. Taylor Swift has always, up to this point, been untouchable because she's always, for the most, I'd say until the last album, she's always delivered, right? You gotta be like, at the end of the day, you're like, but she's very talented. You can't deny that that's amazing. But this weekend, it seemed like she was kind of cheating. Like she had her finger on the scale for the first time. You had to buy the entire album. You couldn't buy a single. Even one single. Sometimes not all songs are available as a single, but that was unusual, right? Tickets to her movie, as I said, were non-refundable. Changed your mind? Too bad. She's keeping your money. And while it's perfectly fine for her hardcore fans to love her new album, the praise from critics and publications seemed overly enthusiastic. For instance, one example, and be sure to sound off down below of any other examples you want to add, I saw that Rolling Stone, they had a website takeover, including a glowing review that many said came across more as a paid advertisement instead of legit music news coverage. I tweeted that I didn't love the album, and I didn't get too much heat for that comment. It's not like when I said on Thursday that Kiss of the Spider Woman, I said, well, I gave the movie overall a positive review. I said that J-Lo was pretty bad in it. And whoo, her fans got pretty upset about it. But, I didn't get a lot of pushback from saying that I didn't love the new Taylor Swift album. What did you think of Taylor Swift's new album? And what did you think of the coverage that it received over the weekend? Did you think that coverage seemed fair to you? In fact, I'm seeing some people already say after this album, because it's not good, that maybe Taylor Swift, maybe it's time to take a much deserved break. Yeah, that's right. This album's not great, but it's not going to ruin her legacy. She's still the GOAT. But yeah, I think she needs to take a break before maybe it does start to hurt her legacy. I mean, she's put out 2 albums in 2 years. I don't think anyone's that crazy about either one of them. Take a break. Let the fans miss you and make sure your next album is undeniably amazing. I mean, there are no singles on this album, I think, for a reason. Because maybe those 2 I mentioned are the singles, but I know some of you like the other ones. It's interesting. I see a divide. Tangent. I see a divide in Taylor Swift fans. Those who like to listen to the lyrics and like when and the drama, like is she saying something mean about somebody? Oh, who cares if the song's not that good? That was so juicy. And then there are those of us who are like, is it a good song? Do I like to listen to it? And I think that's very interesting. Which fan are you? Maybe you're both. All right, so because Taylor Swift just isn't everywhere in the music space these days, but now she's also everywhere in the NFL. She's over on her fiance's podcast, keeping that thing alive. And now she's got her upcoming wedding, so she's going to be all over the wedding space. Overexposure is a very real thing. Just ask Dwayne Johnson. It's your turn, Dwayne. All right, let's set our laser over to Dwayne. Maybe it's a good thing that his Oscar campaign has been ground to a halt before it barely got started, because some idiot told him that he should go pull an Anne Hathaway and diss the movies that made him famous. He's like, I don't like any of the old movies I made. And everyone's like, oh, well, okay. That was a huge mistake. He should never say that again. And that follow-up movie with Benny Safdie he just signed on for, or I think he's even producing it, but Lizard Music, where he plays the Chicken Man, that's why he said he lost all this weight. I bet you that movie never gets made. If I were giving Dwayne Johnson advice, and I guess I am, I would say run from Benny Safdie. This dude is going to kill your career. And A24 will likely say bye-bye as well, because I think they're going to put all their Oscar chips on Benny Safdie's brother, Josh Safdie, with his awards-hopeful film starring Mr. Timothée Chalamet that the studio is releasing for Christmas. Really, if you're A24 and you have a limited awards budget, are you going to spend any more money to promote The Rock for an Oscar after his movie has been rejected by critics and audiences? I mean, I guess The Rock, who has a lot of money, can pay for it himself. I don't think he doesn't want to embarrass himself by just like totally dropping it, I guess, but I don't know. Maybe let's see how crowded the field is, but this is pretty bad. And also, Dwayne, you spend so much time turning yourself into a brand, a product who sells a lot of products. You can't just will yourself into a successful 180 turn. With art house movies, I think that's the real problem. I think that Dwayne Johnson's upcoming Scorsese movie is still a really good idea for him and a much better fit, because while Scorsese is certainly considered cinema, he's also still commercial. Dwayne Johnson is a big guy in every possible way. He's got a megawatt smile, an incredible personality, and he's meant for big movies, even when they're serious. And this is pretty funny, I think, considering their current beef, but he should be thinking along the lines of Dave Bautista's more serious films. Bautista is better at picking serious projects, right? What do you think? What do you think? I wouldn't give up Dwayne, but I would never make an art house movie again. As for the rest of the top 10, One Battle After Another had a solid second weekend hold, especially since, again, it lost all of its Dolby screens, which not only had to hurt, but clearly did. Now, some of you have been saying that you think that the industry isn't being very truthful when it comes to reporting on One Battle After Another, seeming to will it to be labeled as a success, whereas the industry was much harsher and unfairly so on Sinners. I'm really worried about Sinners getting Barbied this year. Barbie had, people are unfair to Barbie as well. I was very truthful about Sinners doing very well, and I'll be very truthful about One Battle After Another. So I would say that it's the reason people are looking at One Battle After Another in a more positive way is because it's doing better than Killers of the Flower Moon. But what people are neglecting to mention is that Killers of the Flower Moon tanked, right? People were trying to push that movie too. I was like, it sucks from the very beginning, and the perspective on it is all wrong. And eventually everybody came over to my side. I like One Battle After Another, though. I think it's a good movie. Although, as I've been saying from day one with my coverage of it, it's very political, which I do think is going to hinder it a little bit. So while its second weekend hold is better than Killers of the Flower Moon, it's certainly no Sinners, although Sinners' second weekend hold was extraordinary. But it's not even at the level of The Revenant once that went wide in its second weekend. The thing is that One Battle After Another is doing good enough so as not to embarrass itself, like The Smashing Machine just did. And so it's remaining an awards frontrunner, and it also has those really good audience scores to help it. I think that what's happening, my guess would be that the trades really want to see a studio picture potentially do well during awards season this year, but then why wouldn't they back Sinners? It is. I will agree that the coverage has been unfair, and I do not think that One Battle After Another. It's not a box office success. Again, as I said, it's not embarrassing itself, but it's certainly not a sensation or even really good. Like there's no way that it's going to break even theatrically. It'll lose money theatrically. But also, as I've been saying, Warner Brothers spent all this money in the hopes of Oscar gold, or at least a slew of Oscar nominations. And they are pushing, these are both their films, and they are pushing both movies. Although One Battle After Another is being pushed so hard, I hope that does not. I'm very worried about it Sinners getting Barbied. And I do think One Battle After Another will get a lot of nominations. I do. Although we're still a couple months away from awards voting. And anything could always happen. But I do think that this almost 3-hour movie is going to do better on digital and streaming down the line, particularly if it does get those nominations. All right, so speaking of streaming, Gabby's Dollhouse is headed there fast, although nobody's surprised by that, as it took quite the tumble in its second weekend. Everybody who was going to see it in theaters went to see it opening weekend. But also, wow, look at The Conjuring 4, which with this one, Warner Brothers kept it as a theater exclusive for a little longer than other movies, because Warner Brothers is kind of imitating Universal a little bit by rushing films to digital in some cases. But this one, they kept on in theaters. It's in its fifth weekend, but it will be hitting digital this Tuesday. Demon Slayer is also still pretty high up in its fourth weekend, while The Strangers 2 had a big drop, but not a huge one, not a devastating one, which is surprising considering how poorly it was received. Horror always has a little bit of a safety net. Now, Disney cannot be happy with this re-release of Avatar 2, which, as I said, along with the poor performance of the trailers, has got to be making Disney a little bit nervous about, maybe even more than a little bit nervous, about the upcoming third film. Disney has had a very difficult year outside of Lilo and Stitch, and they're counting on Zootopia 2 and Avatar 3 to turn things around. In fact, right now, this has been a very difficult fall for everybody in the industry, all of us, and we're all hoping on these movies. A rising tide lifts all boats. I'm starting to lose a little faith in both of these films hitting $1 billion, though. I'm nervous, although they do seem like such strong slam dunks. We'll see. But first, when it comes to Disney, this coming weekend, we'll see if Tron Ares can start to turn things around a little bit, or be yet another embarrassment for the studio in a year of embarrassments. The review embargo for Tron Ares lifts this Tuesday, which is par for the course with Disney these days. They have, I think for the last year or so, always had the review embargo the Tuesday before release. Then IFC's new movie Good Boy and The Long Walk round out the top 10. Over on streaming, starting with Nielsen's charts per usual, this time for the first week of September. Remember, this is confusing and it's frustrating that Nielsen is so far behind, but Nielsen's charts are always a full month behind. All right, so this was when Wednesday returned with part 2 of season 2. And while season 2 has been no season 1 in every conceivable way, these are still really impressive numbers. Wait till we get over to Netflix's charts. But this is very strong and doing better than anybody else. Look at Netflix, the top 4 on the overall chart, each with over 1 billion views and the only content to have numbers that high. Also, though, look at Lilo and Stitch when it hit Disney Plus. That's also impressive, and why we continue to see Stitch merch everywhere. Thank goodness co-creator Chris Sanders isn't just returning to voice Stitch for the live-action sequel, but now this time he'll help to write an all-new story as well. Thank goodness. That makes me very excited. On the originals chart, I can't believe it. Alien Earth not only managed to hold on, we thought for sure it would slip off this week, but it went back up to number 9. Oh boy! The bar is low for this show. But hey, it might be barely holding on, but at least it's on the chart, which Peacemaker still can't say through 3 weeks into its second season. Alien Earth has a panel at New York Comic-Con this week. Maybe we'll get that season 2 announcement. I'm not saying Alien Earth doesn't need to change things a little bit, and it certainly has some lessons to take away from season 1. I mean, again, it's like Star Wars. You can't deny that a lot of people who are fans of the franchise did not care for it. But give them another chance. Give them one more chance, man. Are you rooting for an Alien Earth season 2? I want it so bad. As for Peacemaker, it's not great that it still hasn't trended, especially because its first episodes were its longest in the season. But I gotta tell you, I do expect it to trend once we catch up to episode 6. Some of you are sending me Variety's competing chart. Nobody really pays attention to that, but Peacemaker was on it for episode 6. Because it was only a week behind. So I do think that we'll see Peacemaker at some point on this chart, particularly with episode 6. I didn't like episode 7, as many of you know, but I liked 6 a lot, and it got a lot of attention. And we'll see what happens with episode 8 this week. So again, we'll see what happens, but I think we'll see Peacemaker at some point on this chart, just like we eventually saw Penguin. Although they have not renewed Penguin. Although that's partially, of course, because Colin Farrell doesn't want to do it. But why don't they renew? I mean, I think they have to figure out what they're going to do with Batman. But we all wanted like maybe a Catwoman series or something like that. All right, then on movies, the movies chart, Thunderbolts is also still doing pretty good on Disney Plus, along with Lilo and Stitch. Well, Spike Lee's latest joint just hasn't connected. Although Apple, like a lot of streaming services, did absolutely nothing to advertise it, except for a bunch of interviews with Spike Lee and Denzel Washington, where Denzel Washington decided to say that he doesn't watch movies anymore. That's an interesting approach to advertising your own movie. And wow, people still love Shrek, right? A very good sign for the upcoming Shrek 5, although that sequel is now 2 years away. On Netflix's charts for just last week, Netflix doesn't mess around. They're only a week behind. Not too much happening in the television space, with the streamer going for quantity over quality, with Black Rabbit joined by 2 new series, Wayward and House of Guinness, all doing moderate numbers for moderate shows. I've just skipped all of these. Have you watched any? I've tried House of Guinness, which, I think was pretty good. It was funny. I watched the press screener for the first House of Guinness when it didn't have the VFX done or the music tracks in, and the color grading was wrong. And that made such a big difference over the first episode. So I might go back to House of Guinness actually. But the other 2, I tried Black Rabbit and I thought it was awful. And I'm probably not going to check out Wayward. Wednesday season 2, still pretty high up, now number 7 and on the all-time chart, but less than half of the first season. Again, I hope they learned some. I think there was a lot of lessons to learn from Wednesday season 2, and I'm really surprised they haven't changed the release strategy for Stranger Things 5. I mean, Stranger Things 5 is the last season, so that might help that. But people clearly don't like such long breaks between seasons. And I think that I gotta tell you, I don't think that the parts really works. I think you can either do weekly or binge. I don't think like a couple of weeks or a month break between parts is really working out. What do you think of that strategy? I think viewers have rejected this strategy. People always seem to forget the second they fall away for the next part. Tough week for Netflix. Everybody hated the new monster. Hated it. I tried to watch it. I couldn't get past it. I was going to maybe review it because I like monsters so much, but I couldn't get past the first episode. Also, I forgot to mention that Adolescence has been back up on these charts because of the Emmy wins, all the Emmy wins that it got at the beginning of the month, beginning of September. Then with movies, over on movies, K-Pop Demon Hunters is finally starting to slow down just a little as it dropped under 20 million views for the week for the first time since it launched 15 weeks ago. Wow. But Netflix, now they're working very hard to keep it in the public eye because, as I said, we're getting to awards season and Netflix wants those nominations, if not wins. Live action Huntrix was on SNL last night as a surprise guest, will appear on Jimmy Fallon on Tuesday for the first time ever for a full live performance. They're going to do the whole song live. And they will also be at New York Comic Con. And even with Taylor Swift entering the music charts, Golden has still managed to hold its own. That is amazing. But it will be interesting to see if the live action version of Huntrix, which has much different styling, can be as popular as the animated version. Hey, as someone who likes to wear black a lot myself, I don't blame them. But I'm surprised that nobody has pointed out to them that they have such a different vibe than the version of them that everybody has really loved. You know, like if you're trying to get, like, be yourself, obviously, but if you're trying to build on something that everybody loves, you would think you would mirror it in some way, right? I mean, what would you advise them? What do you think? I mean, it's tough, for sure. It's tough. I think, though, no matter what they decide, how they decide to do their styling, they'll certainly be at the Oscars this year to perform because they'll be nominated, I think, for sure for Best Original Song. I would think they would win if it weren't for Wicked for Good, which has, of course, 2 new original songs, which therefore means Wicked for Good will probably win. But Huntrix will be there and deserves to be there. Are you enjoying K-Pop Demon Hunters' jump to live action? I worry because they might feel this is a test for bringing the story to live action, but I don't think it's a proper test because, again, they don't seem like the characters. Like, even frickin' Idina Menzel could never really truly compete with the animated version of herself as Elsa. It's hard to compete with the fantasy version. And I feel like the live action singers aren't getting enough support in that way. Again, what would you advise them to do as they try to capitalize on their success with the animated movie? Then on digital with Apple's charts, speaking of awards season, methinks this might be why Warner Brothers switched the thumbnail to Gladys. Because you would be like, why would you spoil that? Why would you put Gladys in the thumbnail for people who haven't seen the movie? She's supposed to hopefully kind of be a surprise. And they're like, Gladys. And I think that's because they want you to vote for her for Best Supporting Actress. And I got a tip that Warner Brothers Awards office is indeed campaigning. They've made the choice. You know, the studio decides what they're going to campaign for, what they're going to spend the money on. Remember, they don't have an infinite amount of money to spend on awards campaigns. So for Weapons, Warner Brothers is going not only for that Best Original Screenplay nomination, but also Supporting Actress nomination for Amy Madigan. That would be huge for the horror genre if Warner Brothers can make that happen. And I'm curious, do you think Madigan deserves a Best Supporting Actress nomination? Maybe. That would be really, again, it would mean so much for horror. But it's funny, Warner Brothers, again, it's Warner Brothers. It's like, dude, what about Sinners? What about One Battle After Another? I mean, I hope they have a pretty big awards budget for campaigning. And while new digital release Downton Abbey is doing great on the small screen, as we all knew it would, I'm surprised to see fellow new release Caught Stealing doing so poorly. I'm starting to think maybe Austin Butler's career is not going to work out. You know, he's just not clicking. Do you think it's because he just isn't a star after all, or do you think he's picking bad projects? And what the heck is Code 3? This direct-to-digital movie is doing surprisingly well, with Rainn Wilson, Lil Ray Howery, and Amy Carrero. Anyone watch that? I'm kind of tempted now. Some of you must have. It's freaking number 7. Then as for this coming weekend, is it time to enter the grid? Disney and Jared Leto sure hope so, as well as hope that the siren call of cool lighting and awesome music will be too much for audiences to ignore. That is a pretty compelling siren call. The Mouse has also made sure they have IMAX and Dolby screens locked down and are even offering Tron. Well, Disney likes to offer all their movies in 3D these days to try and boost the box office. But I think Tron in 3D is actually a pretty good idea. How are you planning to see Tron Ares this weekend, if at all? But it's going to also be crowded at the multiplexes coming weekend, which is awful for the Smashing Machine in one battle after another, as they're going to lose even the medium-sized screens. There's Paramount's Roofman and Kiss of the Spider-Woman, while in limited release, there's After the Hunt, and If I Had Legs, I'd Kick You, because yes, awards season is starting to ramp up. And awards movies love a good limited release to try and get the chatter going. On digital on Tuesday, as I said, we're getting The Conjuring 4 plus Freakier Friday will finally be available. Again, Disney has those very long theatrical windows. Although I think Freakier Friday would have been much better as a late summer, early September digital release. It feels like a summer movie, don't you think? Not very fall-like. We'll see. Then on streaming on Friday with movies, Netflix has the thriller The Woman in Cabin 10 with Keira Knightley and a star-studded cast, while Paramount Plus has Vicious with Dakota Fanning and actors you've never heard of. Prime Video then has Ryan Reynolds' produced John Candy documentary. Finally, with shows on Tuesday, October 7th, HBO drops the entire season of One Day in October, which should make a pretty big splash on social media as it dramatizes the horrific October 7th, 2023 attack. Wednesday, Netflix, that's not a new show. I believe it's aired somewhere else previously, but this is the first time it'll be brought to, I think, its biggest audience. Wednesday, Netflix has both Victoria Beckham and 1 Hour Special Boots, while on Friday, Apple TV kicks off The Last Frontier with the first 2 episodes. And that's this week's movie math. What have you been watching? What do you plan to watch? And again, back to Tron Ares, how do you think it's going to do at the box office? And do you plan to see it in theaters? Share those thoughts down below, subscribe today, and of course, as always, you can check out some more videos right now.